Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. Dynamite tonight was from Arthur Ashe Stadium in Queens, here in New York. It was AEW Grand Slam, and the show just ended, and didn't go to this year's Grand Slam. I've been to the previous two Grand Slams in 2022 and last year, which you guys could check out my vlogs for those two. Still up on my channel. But this year's Grand Slam, I thought it was a decent show, in my opinion. And in my opinion, I had a good card for this year. But we saw Bryan Danielson. He had taken on Nigel McGuinness. Nigel McGuinness has been going on about Bryan. They have a long history together. And, Nigel McGuinness, went on social media, at times leading up to this match saying that Bryan fears, Nigel. He had a shirt of that. And we also had the FTW Championship on the line. Hook defend the title against Roderick Strong. We had the AEW World Tag Team Championship on the line where the Young Bucks defend the titles against Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay. We also had the AEW Women's World Championship on the line where Mariah defend the title against Yuka Sakazaki. In the main event, we had Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin. This is for Darby's AEW World Championship opportunity. But overall, Dynamite Grand Slam was a decent show, in my opinion. But the stage setup for Grand Slam this year, they didn't have a ramp like the previous years that they were there. And, I thought that was, pretty decent. For the previous, Grand Slams, we got a ramp, which had like a, cars, graphic on the ramp. But anyway, let's jump right into the review. AEW Dynamite Grand Slam kicked off with Bryan Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness. So, Bryan and Nigel, they have had history together. I'm not too familiar with their history, but all I know is Nigel McGuinness has been, mentioning about Bryan, calling Bryan out, going on social media, and just, cutting promos on Bryan. Nigel, of course, wears, the Bryan fears, Nigel shirt whenever he does, his promos, on his social media. And on Collision last Saturday, Nigel delivered a really good promo, on Bryan. But the match itself, it was, decent, for what it was. It could have been a lot better, in my opinion. So Nigel McGuinness head out to the ring first. And Bryan's music ended up hitting. And Bryan didn't even come out. So Nigel then ended up grabbing the mic. He ended up saying that he hasn't seen Bryan all day. He ended up calling Bryan a coward. And he ended up telling the ref to start the 10 count, stating that Bryan will be stripped of the AEW World Championship if he doesn't come out. So the ref began making the count, and then we heard, "It's the final countdown," playing. So the crowd ended up popping for that. So Bryan stepped out to the stage. He slowly made his way to the ring. He was greeting the fans there. He was giving fist bumps to the fans sitting front row. So Bryan then climbed the turnbuckle. He was taking in the pops from the crowd, the electricity of the crowd there. They chanted along with, Bryan's music, the final countdown. People, were chanting, "It's the final countdown," singing along. So the match got underway, and we had Bryan and McGuinness end up standing off. The crowd was chanting excitement. Both guys end up locking up. Nigel ended up sending Bryan back with an uppercut. Bryan ended up sending McGuinness into the corner with a forearm. Both guys then locked up again. Bryan ended up escaping a wrist lock from McGuinness, and then McGuinness ended up knocking Bryan down. So we had McGuinness end up circling the canvas. Bryan ended up taking McGuinness down. He ended up hitting McGuinness with a spinal tap, but McGuinness got back to his feet. McGuinness then ended up knocking Bryan, and they ended up locking up again. Both Bryan and McGuinness were exchanging holds back and forth. So Bryan ended up getting sent to the ropes by McGuinness. McGuinness ended up following up with some hard strikes, sending Bryan to the corner. Bryan started striking back at McGuinness. So both guys were trading strikes. Bryan ended up sending McGuinness down with a kick to his leg. McGuinness ended up drawing Bryan in to mount up some punches to Bryan, but Bryan ended up turning things around. Bryan started delivering some more punches to Nigel McGuinness. Nigel ended up escaping, and we had McGuinness was looking to go for the label lock, but Bryan countered with the label lock of his own, which forced McGuinness to crawl to the ropes to break up the label lock. So McGuinness then forced Bryan to the outside. McGuinness then took control of the match by sending Bryan into the barricade. He ended up setting up the steel steps for a drop toe hold, which sent Bryan down hard. McGuinness ended up going after Bryan's hand, and Bryan ended up narrowly escaping disaster, and he ended up getting to his feet. He ended up sending McGuinness into the ring post. McGuinness then turned things around by slamming Bryan's arm against the ring post, and McGuinness ended up bringing Bryan back to the ring. McGuinness ended up catching Bryan's arm. He ended up locking in a London Dungeon on Bryan, and then Bryan ended up forcing a break at the ropes. So Bryan started fighting back. He ended up setting McGuinness down. He ended up taking McGuinness to the top turnbuckle, to which McGuinness ended up intercepting. So McGuinness ended up setting up the Tower of London, but Bryan ended up escaping that. Bryan ended up hitting the Busaiku knee to McGuinness, but Bryan ended up grabbing his forearm in pain. So Bryan got to his feet. He ended up laying a series of kicks on McGuinness, and then he delivered a roundhouse kick to McGuinness, and Bryan ended up going for the cover, to which McGuinness ended up kicking out. Bryan then ended up bringing McGuinness to his feet. He ended up sending McGuinness into the corner, but McGuinness ended up catching himself for a headstand on the turnbuckle. Very nice headstand that McGuinness did on the other turnbuckle. So McGuinness ended up responding with a lariat to Bryan. He ended up going for the cover, to which Bryan ended up kicking out. And Bryan ended up looking to go for a label lock again, but McGuinness ended up managing to break free of the label lock. McGuinness ended up getting sent to the corner. He caught Bryan with a lariat off the ropes and took Bryan down. Bryan started to fight back. He ended up getting laid out by McGuinness with a lariat, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Bryan ended up kicking out. McGuinness ended up going back to work on Bryan's shoulder. So Bryan tried to fight back, and then McGuinness ended up laying in some elbows to Bryan. McGuinness picked Bryan up, and he ended up delivering the Tower of London on Bryan. And we had McGuinness ended up going for the cover on Bryan, and Bryan ended up kicking out again. So McGuinness was looking to trap Bryan in the London Dungeon again, and he ended up getting it cinched in. Bryan ended up trying to escape, which led McGuinness twisting Bryan's arm back. So Bryan ended up managing to escape. He ended up laying in some elbows to McGuinness. Bryan got to his feet. McGuinness ended up following before him and Bryan started trading strikes back and forth. This led to both McGuinness and Bryan going down. McGuinness got back up to hit the ropes for a drop kick to Bryan. Bryan then ended up hitting the ropes, and he delivered a lariat to McGuinness, but McGuinness ended up catching Bryan with a lariat to send Bryan down to the canvas. So both guys were laid out again. So it gave Bryan an opening to lock in the label lock on McGuinness. McGuinness was struggling to stay out of the label lock, but Bryan started clubbing McGuinness with a forearm, and Bryan cinched in the label lock, only for McGuinness to roll through. But Bryan was not on his shoulders, and it forced McGuinness back down to the canvas to get the hold in. So Bryan had the label lock locked in, and it looked like McGuinness was saying, I think he said thank you or fuck you to Bryan, and then McGuinness ended up tapping out. The ref called for the bell. So there you go. Bryan ended up winning the match. Post-match, Christian Cage's music ended up hitting. Christian Cage, of course, had the contract in hand for a World Championship shot. Kip Sabian snuck up behind Christian Cage. Kip Sabian took the pen away from Christian, and Kip Sabian ended up running to the back. So Christian Cage ended up chasing after Kip Sabian, and Christian was spooked by the sight of Pac and Claudio Castagnoli backstage. So pretty much that was basically that. Overall, this was a decent match between Bryan and Nigel McGuinness here. The crowd at points were silent, and in my opinion, the match could have been a little bit better, in my opinion. So, but overall, it was decent for what it was. And I forgot to mention the match ended up going commercial free. You know, there was limited commercial interruptions here. And then we had Hook versus Roderick Strong. This was for the FTW Championship. Match was very meh, in my opinion. Of course, Roderick Strong was accompanied by Mike Bennett and Matt Taven of the Undisputed Kingdom. So the match got underway with both Hook and Roderick Strong locking up. Strong ended up getting a wrist lock on Hook. Hook ended up trying to turn things around, but Roderick Strong ended up sending Hook into the corner with the wrist lock. Hook ended up going for a submission on Roderick Strong, but Mike Bennett and Matt Taven ended up pulling Roderick Strong out of the ring. Hook then followed Strong out, and he ended up landing a knee on Strong. He then started firing off some right hands on Strong. Strong ended up sending Hook into the barricade. Strong ended up grabbing a kendo stick. Hook then took the kendo stick from Strong, and he ended up hitting both Mike Bennett and Matt Taven with the kendo stick. Hook then ended up using the kendo stick to land a Russian leg sweep on Strong into the barricade, but Strong ended up getting Hook up on his shoulders, and Strong ended up sending Hook crashing into the ring post. So then Dynamite went to commercial. So then when Dynamite came back from the commercial, Hook continued to fight back against Strong. He ended up sending Strong into the corner. He then ended up hitting a Northern Light suplex on Strong. He went for the cover to which Strong ended up kicking out. So Hook locked in the key lock on Strong. Strong ended up slowly getting to his feet. He started finding his way out of the hold. So we had Matt Taven end up looking to offer Strong a chair, but Strong was nearly caught with a red rum before he ended up sending Hook into the corner. So we had Strong end up dropping Hook, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Hook ended up kicking out. So Strong ended up setting up the chairs, 2 chairs that Matt Taven ended up handing to him. So Hook ended up sending Roderick Strong onto the chairs. So Strong started to fight back with a gutbuster onto the chair to Hook, which was followed by a running kick. So he ended up going for the cover, and Hook ended up kicking out. So we had Hook end up blocking in the Red Rum on Roderick Strong. Roderick Strong ended up tapping out. So there you go. Hook ended up winning the match, retaining the FTW Championship. No surprise there. Post-match, Mike Bennett and Matt Taven ended up coming into the ring. And it was only so that Roderick Strong gave Hook a handshake. So Hook accepted the handshake. Strong ended up giving Hook a hug of respect. And then Roderick Strong and Mike Bennett and Matt Taven ended up leaving the ring. So Tony Schiavone then ended up interviewing Hook. Tony ended up talking up the history of the FTW Championship, of course, which was created by Taz, Hook's father, in New York here. So Hook ended up thanking Tony Schiavone for that. He ended up saying that all good things must come to an end. Hook ended up giving props to everyone who ever competed for the FTW Championship. He then made the announcement that the FTW Championship will be officially retired. So Hook ended up handing the title to his father, Taz. He then hugged him, and he made his way up the ramp, and pretty much that was basically that. So the FTW Championship is officially retired. But do we count this as a title that, has been discovered by AEW and, just by Hook having the title and then it going to Jericho and then back to Hook? I'm like, did it officially count as a title that AEW saw it in? But overall, the match itself was very meh, in my opinion. Glad that the FTW Championship is officially retired. And then we had, in my opinion, the best match of the night. The AEW World Tag Team Championship on the line. The Young Bucks defend the titles against Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. Man, what a good match this was. The crowd was so into this match. It was highly entertaining. And we also had Don Callis on commentary for the match. We had Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. They ended up making their way out first. And then, of course, the Bucks, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, ended up coming out. So the match got underway with Nicholas and Will Ospreay started off. We had Matthew Jackson quickly jumping into the ring to get involved. Fletcher ended up rushing in. The Bucks ended up fending Fletcher off. And they then posed, which got boos from the crowd. So we had the Bucks end up double teaming on Ospreay, and Fletcher and Ospreay end up delivering a double arm drag to Nicholas, and we had Fletcher and Ospreay deliver double moonsaults off the top to both of the Bucks, which was great. Good spot there. So then Dynamite went to commercial. Then when Dynamite came back from the commercial, Ospreay ended up tagging in. Ospreay ended up landing a right hand off the top rope to Matthew. Ospreay was going for the hidden blade on Nicholas, but Nicholas ended up seeing Ospreay come in, and he tagged in Matthew. Matthew ended up delivering a assisted sliced bread with Nicholas to Ospreay, and then Nicholas ended up tagging in. The Bucks then set up for the EVP trigger on Ospreay. Ospreay ended up seeing that coming, and he connected with a double Oz cutter to the Bucks, which was awesome. So Fletcher ended up tagging in. Fletcher ended up leveling the Bucks with a double clothesline. Fletcher then ended up setting up for a powerbomb on Nicholas, to which Nicholas countered that into a hurricanrana, but Ospreay ended up landing a 450 splash on Nicholas off the top, which was great. Matthew then ended up catching Ospreay with a Canadian Destroyer, but Ospreay ended up quickly recovering, and he delivered the hidden blade to Matthew. Fletcher was exchanging some right hands with Nicholas. He ended up running the ropes, but Matthew ended up tripping Fletcher up, and Nicholas ended up catching Fletcher with a hurricanrana off the apron. The Bucks then delivered the TK driver to Fletcher on the apron, which was cool. And then Dynamite went to commercial. Then when Dynamite came back from the commercial, Ospreay and Fletcher, they both ended up sending the Bucks crashing into the canvas with a double Styles clash. AJ Styles is probably proud of both Ospreay and Fletcher after this. Ospreay ended up tagging in. He delivered the hidden blade to Matthew, which sent Matthew crashing into the canvas. He ended up going for the cover, and Nicholas broke up the pin. We had later on Don Callis end up stepping away from the commentary table. Don Callis ended up handing Fletcher a screwdriver. And so Don Callis then distracted the ref. Fletcher considered using the screwdriver. And then Ospreay ended up intervening. Ospreay ended up pulling the screwdriver away. And he ended up getting the screwdriver out of the ring. And it led the Bucks knocking Ospreay down. And we had Nicholas end up hitting Fletcher with one of the World Tag Team Championship belts, and that led to the Bucks end up hitting a double super kick to Fletcher, and also the Bucks end up hitting the BTE trigger. So the Bucks end up winning the match, retaining the AEW World Tag Team Championship. Overall, this was a very good match. This, in my opinion, was the best match of the night. Highly entertaining. The crowd was into it. And a lot of good spots that happened in the match here. There was actually points where we all thought that Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay were going to win the titles. But eventually, in the outcome, we all know what happened. But overall, like I said, best match of the night. And then we saw Renee Paquette. Renee Paquette was with the Conglomeration. And the Conglomeration ended up welcoming Rocky Romero to the team. So they ended up hyping up their Tornado Trios match that we're going to see on Collision this Saturday, and they're going to be taking on the Learning Tree, Jericho, Big Bill, and Bryan Keith, to which now they are taping Collision for Saturday. So pretty much, that was basically that. So we're going to be seeing that match this Saturday on Collision. And then we had Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone ended up welcoming our Prince Nana to give us an update on Swerve Strickland. So Tony Schiavone ended up asking Prince Nana how Swerve is doing. So Prince Nana ended up talking about the situation, saying that Swerve Strickland is not clear to compete and that he looks forward to coming back. So then, Prince Nana was interrupted by MVP. Yes, MVP made his AEW debut tonight at Grand Slam. And MVP ended up reintroducing himself to the crowd. And he ended up talking about Swerve's run with the AEW World Championship. He then mentioned about all the men Swerve defeated, saying that he saw it all, including the night that Swerve lost the World Championship. MVP ended up saying that he also saw Swerve's childhood home burn down, and the man that did it is still walking around. course, he's talking about Hangman Adam Page. So MVP ended up saying that he doesn't consider that a failure on Swerve's part, but of the man who is managing him. So pretty much basically MVP was running Prince Nana down for not doing enough for Swerve. So MVP then ended up offering his business card to Prince Nana for Swerve to talk business. So MVP headed to the back, and pretty much that was basically that. So we have MVP's arrival in AEW. And, you know, he has his eye on helping Swerve, where MVP feels that Prince Nana has failed Swerve. So I'm looking forward to where this is going to go. Maybe, prediction, maybe this leads to Bobby Lashley coming into AEW. And prediction, another prediction here, maybe we'll get Bobby Lashley, if he does come into AEW, maybe we'll get Bobby Lashley versus Swerve Strickland at Wrestle Dream. So that's my prediction there. Who knows? But looking forward to seeing where this is going to go. And then we had Mariah May versus Yuka Sakazaki. This was for the Women's World Championship. We had Yuka Sakazaki end up making her way out to the ring first, and then Mariah May. So we had Sakazaki end up flying off the top rope to level Mariah May. Sakazaki ended up sending Mariah May bouncing off the ring apron a couple of times. And then Sakazaki delivered a 619 to Mariah May. Sakazaki ended up dumping Mariah May back in the ring, and she ended up going for the cover, and Mariah May ended up kicking out. So then we had Mariah May end up trading strikes with Sakazaki. So Sakazaki ended up hitting a rolling elbow, which sent Mariah May to the ropes, but Mariah May evaded a kick to get a breather on the outside. Sakazaki ended up slowly getting to her feet, and Mariah May ended up doing a run shotgun drop kick, which sent Sakazaki back down. So Mariah May ended up bringing Sakazaki back into the ring. Mariah May ended up going for a spinning side slam to Sakazaki. She went for the cover, and Sakazaki ended up kicking out. So Mariah May ended up bringing Sakazaki back up to her feet. She ended up propping Sakazaki against the ropes. And we had Mariah May end up sending Sakazaki into the corner, setting her up for her Karana. But Sakazaki caught Mariah May. She trapped Mariah against the ropes. Aubrey Edwards ended up making the count for Sakazaki to force a break, because she had Mariah May trapped against the ropes. So Mariah started fighting back. She ended up setting up the Mayday on Sakazaki, but Sakazaki countered that with a cover, and Mariah ended up kicking out. Sakazaki delivered a backslide to Mariah. She then ended up going for the cover, and Mariah ended up kicking out. So we had Sakazaki ended up going for another cover, and Mariah ended up kicking out. So at the end of the match, Sakazaki headed to the ropes for a splash, but Mariah May ended up evading that. Mariah May ended up hitting a knee to Sakazaki's head, and she then connected with the Storm Zero on Sakazaki. Mariah May ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Mariah May ended up winning the match, retaining the Women's World Championship. Post-match, we had Mariah May threatening Yuka Sakazaki with the World Championship. And Will Nightingale came out to make the save for Sakazaki. And this led to a stare down between Nightingale and Mariah May. So Mina Shirakawa, she ended up coming out. And she ended up giving Mariah May an opening to blindside Will Nightingale. To which Mariah May ended up running up the ramp to embrace Mina Shirakawa, because, of course, Mina and Mariah. They are very good friends. They were in Stardom together. And when Mariah May ended up run up the ramp to embrace Mina, Mina looked all shocked by this. So Sakazaki ended up rushing up the ramp to get some revenge on Mariah May, but Mariah ended up running off to the back. And pretty much that was basically that. Overall, the match was okay, in my opinion. Main event, Darby Allin versus Jon Moxley. And if Moxley ends up winning the match, he gets Darby Allin's shot at the AEW World Championship. Of course, Moxley was accompanied by Marina Shafir. And this was a good match here. This was a good main event here. Really liked this match. Match ended up getting on the way. We had Moxley end up running over Darby Allin with a boot. Moxley ended up firing off a couple of shots on Darby in the corner. He delivered some chops. He then ended up jamming Darby Allin's mouth into the middle rope and connected with a pair of body slams to Darby. Moxley then started stomping on Darby and whipped him into the corner. But Darby ended up trapping Moxley in the ring skirt, and Darby started raking Moxley's back. Darby ended up landing a kick to Moxley, and he then trapped Moxley's arm in the ring post, which was crazy. So Darby ended up landing some strikes on Moxley's arm, which was still in the ring post, and then Darby ended up delivering a coffin drop off the top rope to Moxley. Really enjoy when Darby does the coffin drop. Good move. So Marina Shafir ended up staring down Darby on the top rope, which ended up giving Moxley an opening to land a body slam on Darby Allin on the ring apron. So Marina Shafir ended up taking a couple of cheap shots to Darby on the outside because Moxley distracted the ref. And then we had Moxley end up wearing down Darby's arm using the ring post. And Darby's, mouth was all bleeding. So then Dynamite went to commercial. Then when Dynamite came back from the commercial, Moxley was in control of the match. He ended up delivering a clothesline to Darby, which turned Darby inside out. Darby then ended up responding with a jawbreaker to Moxley. Darby went up to the top rope, and he delivered a drop kick to Moxley. He was looking to send Moxley crashing into the exposed turnbuckle. Moxley then prevented Darby from doing that, but Darby ended up connected with a springboard crossbody. He started wearing Moxley down with a front face lock. Moxley then ended up sending Darby Allin crashing out of the ring. And we had Marina Shafir end up exposing the concrete. So she ended up pulling up the mats, exposing the concrete. Moxley was sent up for the Death Rider on Darby, but Darby ended up escaping. He ended up sending Moxley crashing into the ring steps. So Darby was looking to land a Tope Suicida on Moxley, and Darby was going for that. Moxley ended up moving out of the way, and Darby ended up going back first into the exposed concrete, which you heard that slam, which was very loud. Man, that's exposed concrete there. So after Darby was sent crashing into the exposed concrete, Moxley ended up sending Darby crashing into the ring steps. So both Moxley and Darby Allin were exchanging strikes to each other. Darby ended up going up to the top. He was sent up for the coffin drop. Moxley saw Darby, coming for the coffin drop. He then caught Darby in a sleeper, but Darby Allin ended up managing to escape the sleeper. Darby and Moxley were teetering on the top rope. Darby started biting Moxley, but Marina Shafir ended up distracting Darby, and that opened the door for Moxley to send Darby Allin crashing into the canvas off of the top. And so Moxley ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Jon Moxley ended up winning the match. Post-match, we had a hooded figure end up coming into the ring. And it was Bryan Danielson. Bryan ended up having a necktie, and he choked Moxley with the necktie. And we had Pac and Claudio end up rushing in to, put, Bryan down and just, get Bryan off of, Moxley. So Private Party and Commander end up running down to even the odds of what was going on. So Bryan was set up for the Busaiku knee to Moxley. But Maria Shafir, Claudio, and Pac end up pulling Moxley out of the ring. So Bryan then got on the mic. He ended up sending a message to Moxley. He was saying to Moxley, "Oh, you want a title shot so bad? Well, you got it." So Bryan made the announcement that it's going to be him versus Moxley at Wrestle Dream. And the AEW World Championship is going to be on the line. And that was basically that. That was how Dynamite went off the air. But really looking forward to Bryan versus Moxley for the World Championship. I think it's going to be a good match come Wrestle Dream. And main event match between Moxley and Darby Allin. It was a good match. Really enjoyed it. But overall, Grand Slam this year, it was a decent show. Wasn't, great or perfect by any means, but it was decent. But anyway, that's it for the Dynamite review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. There will be no SmackDown review this Friday, so won't be doing it. But until the next video, I'll see you all later.